Alrighty, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Andrew for Sports Goofs. This is episode 52, I believe. I'll have to confirm that later. This is kind of an unusual episode because once again I am running things. This time from the Sports Goofs nest, whatever you want to call it. Francisco will be joining us a little bit shortly. Charles not able to make it this evening, but we are still going to be rolling along and doing what we do best, which is attempting to run a podcast every Tuesday. Well, we try to do it every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. For once, we are actually on time. You're welcome. Anyway, so we have a lot to cover this week. But I guess we will go ahead and get started with perhaps we'll come to the Astros later. We've talked enough about them. Let's give a little bit of love to the NASCAR fans out there. And we actually have a guest on today. Let me give him a call right now. This is my first time doing a call like this before, so it may or may not work. We will find out shortly. Anyway, while I'm waiting for this to happen, I'll just do a quick overview of what happened this weekend. It was the Daytona 500 out in beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida, which is let's say about 4 hours north of us down here in Miami, right on the East Coast. The first race of the season, and arguably the biggest race of the season outside of the championship races. Certainly the most famous, I'd argue. And it was a doozy. Normally runs on Sunday, but they had some weather delays out there because Florida. And so they had to postpone it after, I think, 50 miles. I don't know how that translates into laps. And they started again 4 p.m. on Monday, yesterday. They finally ran the whole thing, and it was a great race from everything that I've seen. It was a nail-biter to the very end, and then the big one. For everyone that roughly follows NASCAR, it seems like there's always a big crash at some point at Daytona. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows. I'm sure our friend here can discuss it for us. But there is always a gigantic crash at Daytona, and this time it involved Ryan Newman. And it was a crash. I can't recall seeing a crash that bad in quite a while when it comes to NASCAR. Thankfully, he is totally okay, or not totally okay. He's alive. He is in serious condition in a hospital in the Daytona area. And I'm not going to show a clip of it or anything just because it was a pretty nasty wreck. But he is alive. Looks like he's going to make a recovery. But goodness gracious, it was not something that you want to see. The winner of the race ended up being Danny Newland, I believe his name is. I'm showing my ignorance here. Hold on, let's see. Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin was the winner. In a photo finish, he just barely beat out. Let's see. Ryan Blaney in .014 seconds. So we're talking hundredths of a second. Collard Wharf, welcome to the show, and thank you. Like I was saying, I am not that big of a NASCAR fan, so I'm doing my best, but we definitely wanted to discuss the topic today. I'm trying to get my friend on here. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, just give me a second. We are used to technical difficulties. Let's see here. All right, I think we're going to get working here in a second. Just bear with us, everybody. Bear with me. Okay. Discord is messing up. Oh, hey there, Tony. All right, so let's give it a try from here, I guess. I'll keep trying to call you. I don't know. I'm gonna keep trying to call you, but meanwhile, if in the chat, if you can just give us some analysis of the Daytona 500, that would be really cool. Okay, I started a call. Hopefully it works. Keep saying I missed your call. All right, let's try something else here, folks. Okay. All right, Tony, try the... Oh, you're too kind, FJOJR. You're too kind. Tony, try the... I opened up a voice chat in the Sports Goofs. Crap. Is the show not working? Of course. Yay! So it's not our fault. It's Discord screwing up. Tony, try going. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Try speaking. Why is this not working? Why is this not working? So everyone, if you would just don't mind chatting amongst yourselves, hopefully I'll be able to fix this in a jiffy, although I don't know, knowing us, this will never resolve itself fully. All right, Tony, Now, does anyone have any suggestions on how to fix this? All right, hold on. I have an idea. I don't know how this is, if it's going to work at all, but I'm going to give it a shot. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes! Finally, it works! All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to introduce the show. I guess you can say longtime fan, first time caller. Please welcome, not the actor, but he goes by the name Tony Danza. So, Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been, a year that we've been trying to conduct this?
Yeah, he has work, and not to mention that he is over in the Central Time Zone, so it's not exactly always convenient for him to get on the show. But we've finally got something worked out.
Yeah, man. I'm glad that it finally worked out. I'm glad that my hours are not at night anymore.
Ah, very nice. All right, so Tony describes himself as a NASCAR fan, which is more than can be said for me, or really any of the other sports goofs for that matter. So please take us through the Daytona 500, this year's Daytona 500, if you would.
So, I waited all week. I have an off day on Sunday, and I waited all week to watch it. And sadly, the beginning got delayed, and then a little bit later, it started out, and they did about 40 laps. But I think the biggest storyline coming into the entire race was Donald Trump was going to give the command, and he was going to pace the field and stuff. And putting politics aside, whether you're for Donald Trump or against Donald Trump, it did bring a lot of odds to the Daytona 500, which is something that NASCAR needed really, really bad. There's been like viewership has been down, attendance has been down. It's rather sad, but over the past year, it's been getting a lot better. And Donald Trump attending the Daytona 500 helps that a lot. I'm not going to get into politics. I don't suppose it's the platform to do it, but
yeah, it's
besides all that,
we're goofs for a reason. We try to keep things light here, so we try to avoid politics whenever we can. But that was definitely interesting having the president attend. I can't remember the last time that a president attended any race for that matter, and
I think,
and certainly not one that had his tank drive around on the track.
I mean, still, politics aside, I mean, it was a bit excessive, if you ask me. But I don't know. It was cool. It was cool to have a president, be there. I think the last time that a president attended, it was a big deal. I believe it was Ronald Reagan. And there's I can't remember if it was Reagan or Nixon, but there's a very famous picture of Dale Earnhardt driving down the backstretch at Daytona, and the airport that's right beside the racetrack. You can see Air Force One landing right beside it. It's a really famous picture. But more about the race. So, on super speedway tracks, not a lot happens during the middle of the race. There's a lot of lining up, a lot of drafting, not a lot that goes on. And that's pretty much what happened in the Daytona 500. With about 60 laps to go. And this is on Monday. With about 60 laps to go, stuff starts getting choppy. And super speedway tracks like Daytona and Talladega, there's always one that they call the big one, because cars are so cramped up together. And they end up all wrecking, and it ended up happening after a cycle of green flag pit stops. And, but a couple dozen cars get trashed, but that's just what you expect. But I suppose the biggest thing from from the whole entire race was Brian Newman. Brian Newman's been racing in NASCAR for years, since I was a kid. He gave Roger Penske his very first Daytona 500 win. And they actually finished 1-2. Him and Kurt Busch finished 1-2 back in the day whenever they still drove Dodges for Roger Penske. Which, I can go into a tangent about Roger Penske. He was a cheater back in the day, which is glorified in NASCAR, but, you know. So, they're coming to the checkered flag. Ryan Newman is blocking his you-know-what off. He's trying to stay in the lead. Ryan Blaney goes low. He tries to throw a block. Whenever you get really close, like whenever you come up onto another car and you get really close, you take the air off the spoiler, which can make the car get a little wily. And he hit him hard enough, and Ryan Newman went flying into the outside retaining wall. Flipped over, and this is what I think what hurt him the most. Whenever he flipped over, he got T-boned while he was upside down in the driver's window. Roll cages are made to protect him, but roll cages aren't made to protect that exact hit. And it was nasty. I've never seen a car get T-boned. And the driver that T-boned him, he had probably put on the brakes a little bit, but he was easily doing 180 miles an hour. I mean, imagine being upside down in your car and getting T-boned in the driver door at 180 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's
slides.
like I was saying before you came on air that I don't think I've ever seen a crash like that before. I mean, I've seen cars get T-boned. Go ahead, sorry.
No, my bad. It doesn't happen. NASCAR for decades they have roof flaps and stuff. They try to keep the car to the ground. They're so low to the ground. You can see the front splitters. There's so much downforce, but in turn, whenever any air gets underneath it, I mean, it's going in the air. And I've seen some nasty wrecks. I've been watching NASCAR since the 1990s, since I was old enough to remember. And I've never seen a car upside down get T-boned to the driver door. So the latest update that I've heard from him is that he's awake and he's talking to doctors. It's okay in that sense, but I mean, the last time I saw somebody get cut out of a car was Eric Almirola whenever he broke his back at Kansas.
Mm.
This is the worst wreck at Daytona since Dale Earnhardt Sr. was killed.
Yeah, and actually, Francisco, one of the other goofs, just mentioned that in the comments that it reminds him of when Earnhardt died. And that actually brings up something that I had been kind of pondering since this happened. And actually, there was a column from someone named Mike Bianchi, who's a columnist for the Orlando Sentinel, which is, I think, it's the largest major newspaper to the Daytona area. It covers all of Central Florida. He said the gist of his column was that essentially Earnhardt's death saved Newman. Because of the hands device, the softer barriers, and all the new stuff that they've put in. He mentioned that the last NASCAR driver to die was Earnhardt, and they've completely revamped the way the cars are designed, all the safety features in and around the car. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with him? Do you have another opinion?
I'm sorry, your mic cut out for a second. What were you saying? What was the question?
Sorry. So would you say that, and I don't advocate anyone dying, it's not great, but would you say that the safety features both in and around the car after Dale Earnhardt's death essentially saved Newman?
Probably. I mean, Dale Earnhardt used to race in an open face helmet for God knows how long. I mean, Dale Earnhardt dying completely changed the sport. completely changed auto racing across the world. Like his death shook the entire scope of auto racing. There really hasn't been that many deaths since Dale Earnhardt, comparatively. Like Dan Weldon died in the IndyCar series, but a tire flew off of somebody else's car and hit him in the head. I mean, there's no amount of safety that can stop you from dying from that. But no, Ryan Newman 100% was saved because Dale Earnhardt died. I know it's a weird way to put it, but it's 100% true. There would never be anything like there is now if it wasn't for Dale Earnhardt dying.
Do you follow much of other types of racing, F1, IndyCar?
Somewhat. I have this little like I don't know the right word for it for F1. I don't know. Let's see how what's a good way to put it. People that watch F1 think F1 is a pistachio, and then NASCAR is a peanut. If that makes sense.
Okay.
And it irks me in a way. But no, I follow IMSA, Indy. I follow F1 to an extent. I don't know a great deal about New Age rally racing, but if there's auto racing on TV, I'm watching it.
Well, this is kind of a personal. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily related to the Daytona 500, but something that I've just thought about, and I'm curious to get your take on it, is F1 cars have added a lot of, or most notably is the halo. Let me see if I can pull. Let me see if I can pull a picture of that up. But basically, the halo, for anyone that doesn't know, it's some sort of like a covering of sorts in front of the driver's head. There's no glass or anything. It's just kind of a structural support around the head area. I'm trying to pull up a picture here because it's tough to describe without looking at it.
It's effectively a roll cage for an open wheel car, and it does like what you said. It's like a halo over their head.
Okay, yeah, I just pulled up a picture of it. So if you're looking at it, here's a good one. It's a T shape. You have one vertical bar directly ahead of the head, and then you have a curving bar that goes around the head. So you really just have these two tiny areas that are not covered. And it stops a lot of large debris from getting in the way. Do you think that they'll end up going to some sort of like a canopy bubble over the driver?
No. Something that separates F1 from everything else is that it's open wheel, open canopy, and the halo itself was already a big deal. Like a lot of people were against it because it takes away from the quote unquote purity of the sport. I never would see them having like a canopy, a cockpit, like fighter jet type style thing. Man, you can look at F1 cars from back in the '60s. I mean, I don't understand how they didn't all die. And with what they have now, the cars they're meant to like explode. Like all of the extremities outside the cockpit are meant to explode off, and it takes all the energy away. There is to be an open canopy car, they're pretty safe. You just have to worry about debris hitting you in the face.
Right. Because, I mean, even though you've got pretty decent protection, you've still got those two open areas.
And I can see how it would be a good safety idea to have an actual canopy over them, but auto racing is such a sport of tradition, more so than many sports. Soccer may be up there with it, but I can never see a day whenever F1 cars had a canopy over them. I'm not a giant F1 fan, and I wouldn't even like it.
Hmm.
It just I'm not a traditionalist about a lot of things, but auto racing I am.
I gotcha. All right. I don't know. This is kind of my ignorance showing. I don't even know what else to discuss about Daytona. I saw somewhere that this was Hamlin's, I think, third Daytona victory.
Um, this is third victory, 2 Daytona 500s in a row, which is pretty unheard of. Everybody else that has 3 Daytona 500 wins are in the Hall of Fame. Richard Petty, Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon. Who else? David Pearson and Kelly Yarborough may have them. I don't want to get quoted on that because I may look like an idiot. But
That's all right. We look like idiots all the time.
it yeah, and the thing that's escaped Denny Hamlin so many times is the championship. He's come so incredibly close so many times. He's had so many great seasons, so many like multiple win seasons. 3 Daytona 500s, never won a championship. So that if there was anything to keep him out of the Hall of Fame, it would be that. But it yeah, it's almost unprecedented because Daytona is such a hard track to win at because it's such a wild card. Other tracks that aren't super speedways, you can really the best drivers are usually going to win. But at Daytona and Talladega, you get lucky and win a race. It's always rolling dice. Like they say, it's a roulette wheel, and if your number gets called, I mean, you're either going to win the race or you're going to leave.
Right.
On the back of a record.
Now, actually, that is a question. You mentioned that Daytona is called a super speedway. How does that? I mean, I know road course is different. That's similar to what you'd see in F1. I think there's only one or two courses that are like that. I think one of them is Watkins Glen, I think, the one up in New York. And I don't know, Pocono, I'm going to guess.
So Pocono isn't exactly a road course. It's always got the nickname the Tricky Triangle. It's a weird racetrack. But the 2 road courses that they go to are Watkins Glen, and they change the name of it every year, but it's in Sonoma, California.
Okay. So you mentioned super speedway. I know there's kind of differences, but what distinguishes a super speedway from any other oval type track?
So basically, on a super speedway, you never have to let off the gas. TV can sort of do it justice, but if you go to a super speedway in person, you cannot walk up the turns. They're at like a 40-degree angle. I mean, it's insane. And whenever the corners are banked like that, it turns the car for you almost. And you never have to let off the gas. They're so big. At Talladega, the last time I went, I remember sitting in the stands on the front stretch, and you could barely even hear the cars whenever they're on the back stretch. I mean, you're over a mile away from them. So basically, there's only 2, Daytona and Talladega, and you just never have to let off. I mean, it's balls to the wall constantly. And they run restrictor plates at super speedways because famously, Bill Elliott was doing. I think they tracked him at the start-finish line at 212, but he had to easily be doing between 220 and 225 miles an hour going down the backstretch. And that's pretty fast.
Yeah, that's I don't know. That's probably approaching the fastest you can get in non-drag racing motorsports.
Yeah. Now, like at Le Mans, before they added the chicanes in the long straightaway, I mean, there are people going well over 200 miles an hour, 220, 230 miles an hour in prototype cars and stuff like that. But they added the chicanes in them because cars were literally going so fast and they're so slipstream that air gets caught underneath them and they just fly in the air like an airplane. so they had to add chicane, so you couldn't just go. I mean, it was, I forgot how many miles the straightaway is. It's over 2 miles of just foot to the floor, going as fast as you can.
That's yikes. I'm amazed they left something like that for so long.
I mean, there's been, I don't know how many people have died at Le Mans. I mean, there was one wreck in the early 1900s where a car flipped into the stands, and I think 58 people got killed.
Good Lord.
It's the most legendary race on Earth. I know NASCAR fans love to say that the Daytona 500 is the greatest race on Earth, but the 24-hour at Le Mans, it really is.
That's always,
car companies go there.
That's always amazed me how, I mean, obviously they change out drivers, but how a team can stay up in race condition, even if they do sleep, which obviously they would have to, I think.
I couldn't imagine doing it.
No way.
It's something else, and the cars go through so much stuff. I mean, whenever Ford first went to Le Mans in the 1960s, first year they went, all their cars blew up. I mean, it's to design a car to run all out for 24 hours straight, and it takes a lot of really good engineering.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. What else do you think we should bring up now that I've got you here? The floor is yours, really.
There's another thing. So NASCAR does a thing that's called packages, and they have different aerodynamic packages, different horsepower packages, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And a big controversy behind why Ryan Newman wrecked is because of the packages that they use for Daytona. It's a high-speed, very aerodynamic, high-horsepower package, and it makes the racing really good. But whenever you try to throw a block on somebody coming up behind you at 208, 210 miles an hour, that is exactly what happened. You flip over, you almost die.
Mm.
And it's great for the fans. I mean, a lot of people love NASCAR because the wrecks are spectacular. I mean, the racing is spectacular, which I encourage people to give NASCAR more of a chance. It's more than just driving in a circle. Sometimes it is amazing racing, and NASCAR has been trying for a long time to fit the right packages at every racetrack to make the racing as good as it can be, but safe at the same time. And
right.
Super speedways have been going back and forth for years, trying to find out what in the world they're going to do. And I thought that this package was great until I saw what happened with Ryan Newman. I'm not sure where NASCAR is going to go. Talladega is going to be completely different. They went from running 220 miles an hour at super speedways to running 180 miles an hour to running 200 to running 190 to running, now they were trapping going into turn 1 at like 209 miles an hour. So I'd be surprised at Talladega this year if they even hit 201 going into the corners. And Talladega's a bigger track than Daytona.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You've given insight that I couldn't have even thought to look into. But yeah, that is an interesting thing to see how they'll change going into Talladega, considering that it's the other track similar to Daytona.
I believe the race at Las Vegas is coming up weekend, which is it's a pretty fast track. It's a mile and a half tracks. Mile and a half tracks are kind of known to be the fastest, quote unquote, tracks. The super speedways are always going to be the fastest, but those in a half a mile, you have guys going into the corner at well over 200 miles an hour, and in the middle of the corner, they're doing about 160, and then they come back up to 200. Racing is always really, really good there. And, the best mile and a half races are like Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick. They're just really fun to watch. And, I'm a NASCAR fan. I can't wait to watch this weekend.
And I guess one final question before I let you go. Thought, I know we had talked briefly as an aside about how the string of success by Jimmy Johnson had kind of taken the wind out of the sails of NASCAR's success. Thoughts on this being his last season? They said it's full time, which I guess leaves the door open for him coming back every now and then. But what are well? I guess first question is: do you think he's going to really full time retire? Not even come back? And either way, what are your thoughts on his legacy in NASCAR?
Whew. Jimmy Johnson. So while he was making his tear through NASCAR, I absolutely hated him. He's one of my least favorite drivers. Was teammates with my least favorite driver, Jeff Gordon, and I just hated everybody that was under Hendrick Motorsports. So he did something that nobody's ever done. He won 5 championships in a row. Dale Earnhardt can say he did that. Richard Petty can say he did that. He won 7, which is kind of like the benchmark in NASCAR. It's like nobody's supposed to win more than 7. Richard Petty won 7, Dale Earnhardt won 7, Jimmy Johnson won 7. Jimmy Johnson gets a lot of heat put on his back because the sport was dying while he was doing that, and a lot of people blame Jimmy Johnson for it. I think it was more NASCAR was at the biggest it ever was right before Jimmy Johnson went on his tirade, and they changed NASCAR so much right then. Mid 2000s, they came up with a quote unquote car of tomorrow that had a wing on the back. It looked ridiculously stupid. It did. I mean, and what was crazy is that it did the exact opposite of what they wanted it to do. So it was supposed to look futuristic. It looked stupid. It was supposed to be safer. Ended up being not safer. Whenever cars would spin out and they would be facing backwards, the wing would catch air and make their car flip over. That's the exact opposite of what they wanted to happen. And the sport died at that moment because NASCAR tried to change. They tried to keep up with the times and they did it completely wrong. Jimmy Johnson gets a lot of the blame for that. I just like with Jeff Gordon, I have a new respect for Jimmy Johnson. What he did wasn't easy. He came at the wrong time to do it. The sport was changing so much, the rules were changing, the point system was changing. He came at the right time to do what he wanted to do, but as far as fans go, he came at the worst time possible. It killed NASCAR to a point that had never been seen before. Nobody came to the races. You could see open seats at Daytona 500s. That is something that never happens, which why I was so glad Daytona 500 this year was sold out. Jimmy Johnson probably won't race again. I doubt it. Whenever Dale Earnhardt Jr. retired, I could see him coming back. But Jimmy Johnson, he runs like 10 marathons a year. He's one of the most athletic people on earth, especially for his age. He's the complete opposite of what people think the stereotypical NASCAR driver is.
Right.
Fat Bubba smoking a cigarette going down the backstretch. Which is something cool. You should look up pictures back in the 60s of David Pearson. He'd be flying down the backstretch with his window down, smoking a cigarette, just doing 200 miles an hour. It's great to see. But yeah, I don't see Jimmy Johnson racing again. I hated Jimmy Johnson for so long, but I really hope he gets a win this season. He's never gone this long without getting a win. It'd be nice to see. But I don't see him ever coming back.
And actually, now that I think about it, if you have time, I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
Predictions. Who do you? And I know the playoff system's a little bit wonky, but who do you think has a decent shot of taking home the grand prize this year?
Calling it now. So there's a Final Four at the end whenever they go through the playoffs, and there's one last race, and they have 4 drivers that are going for the championship. And if I had to pick a Final Four, I put Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch. I think Chase Elliott is going to make it in there this year, and I hate to put the same people in it every year, but it's hard to bet against drivers like Joe Logano and Brad Keselowski and Kevin Harvick. If I had to make an early prediction to who was going to win the championship, I'm going to go with my heart, and I'm going to say Chase Elliott is going to win the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series championship.
Well, let's see. We're one race in, and the season ends in, I think, November.
It does. It's like the longest season of all sport.
So we are totally going to hold you to that prediction in 9 months from now. But hey, you can call yourself Tony Nostradamus or Tony Danzadamus, whatever you want to call it, if you end up getting that prediction right.
Well, I appreciate it.
Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, Tony. I'm so glad we finally got you on the show. We've been talking about it for literally over a year, and it just never worked out. But we finally got you on the show, and I'm really happy that we did.
Sir, hope we can make this like a regular thing.
Definitely, we may do like a halfway mark show. Keep you as a regular.
All right, man. Well, thank you for having me on.
Of course. Have a wonderful evening.
All right, brother.
All right, bye-bye. Let me make sure our call is ended. All right. That was a lot of fun. He'd be the Aaron Boone of NASCAR. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad that Tony was able to finally get on. He's been really one of our more ardent supporters, despite the fact that he really rarely ever gets to watch a show, let alone actually come on. But the fact that he did, I'm super excited about that, and hopefully we'll have him on many, many more times as our show goes forward. All right. Love Das Motorsports. And Tony, I'm just going to call you Tony because that's the only name I know you by, really. Feel free to stay on and chat with us throughout the rest of the show. You're more than welcome to. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. I'm pulling our kind of call sheet up. All right, let's do this. Let's haul, y'all. All right, let's haul, y'all is our regular mini segment that discusses a Hall of Famer. I know Charles, were he here, he'd say that he really doesn't care about the Hall of Fame, despite the fact that he was super excited when Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera got in. Sorry, Charles. Anyway, today we're talking about Larry Walker, Canadian baseball superstar, finally inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame this year. I believe this was his final year of eligibility. They recently changed the rules so that you only get 10 shots at maximum. It's complicated. I'm sure you can look it up somewhere as to what the actual rules are. But basically, once you're nominated, you've got 10 years to get in, to be voted in. Otherwise, then you have to wait for a certain special committee to induct you. But he finally broke through this year, got more than the needed 75% of votes. And boy, it was a memorable announcement, press conference. He had this amazing SpongeBob shirt. Here's a picture of it. Ain't no ordinary sponge, keep it real. Absolutely. That is a Hall of Fame. That's Hall of Famer wearing a Hall of Fame shirt right there. Unbelievable, amazing, can't say enough about it. Here's him with his dog. I think that's a French bulldog. What a mad lad indeed. So let's talk a little more about the one and only Larry Walker here. Let's pull up some more info on him. Larry Walker, he played outfield, did not go to college, was not... Francisco, your notes suck. 1 second, folks. Anyway, like I said, he is Canadian, which is awesome. I love Canada. Let's pull up his Wikipedia. Larry Kenneth Robert Walker. Awesome name. He's a good old Canadian. Was born in Maple Ridge, British Columbia, which is out over on the west coast. Very beautiful out there. Made his debut in 1989 for the Montreal Expos. Then went to the Colorado Rockies, where did most of his damage, and really kind of became a household name. Then he ended his career with the St. Louis Cardinals, a 1-year stint with them. 5-time All-Star, National League MVP in 1997, 7-time Gold Glover, 3-time Silver Slugger, 3-time batting champion, which is batting average, I believe, and then led the National League in home runs in 1997. Does it say where he was drafted? Aha! So Canadians were not eligible to be drafted in Major League Baseball at the time. Interesting. I did not know that. So, Francisco, your notes are on point. My apologies. He had 2,160 hits, 383 home runs, 1,311 RBI, 1,355 runs, a .313 batting average, and a 72.7 WAR. For those who don't know what WAR is, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing, except when it comes to the baseball statistic. WAR is wins above replacement. And in simplistic terms, it's a metric used to determine how valuable a player is to his team. A 0 WAR, it's put up against an average replacement player. For any lawyers out there, it would be kind of like the reasonably prudent person, where it's what is expected of someone. Just like the bare minimum. If you have a negative WAR, that means that you are a detriment to your team. If you have a positive WAR, that means you're actually benefiting your team. The more WAR, the higher the number. That means the more games, quote unquote, that you contributed to your team. 72.7 is a pretty high WAR. Went to the playoffs 3 times. Lost in 2004 with the St. Louis Cardinals. That was the year that the Red Sox broke the curse of the Bambino. Played only a third of his games at Coors Field. Coors Field, of course, that being the upper deck of the stadium is literally a mile high. So that being that high, there's low air pressure, which makes baseballs fly further. That being said, oh, hey, a wild Francisco appeared. Let me unmute his microphone here.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Welcome to the show, Francisco.
I just climbed 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah, I don't know why you did that.
I need the exercise.
Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, Francisco is in the house.
Yay. I was able to listen to it along the way over there on Periscope, so as you can see by my comments. And yes, Jimmy John's, they're all right.
And I told, for anyone that was actually paying attention to this the last time I was on the show, I did end up getting Jersey Mike's. It is very good.
Is there a Blimpies around here?
I have no idea.
I remember a Blimpies back in West Palm Beach. I don't even know if I remember eating there, but...
I've never been to a Blimpies.
Yeah, I think that's like a New York
I think
thing.
so.
I could imagine it in West Palm Beach, South Florida, a bunch of New Yorkers here.
Right. Although actually a Miami Subs is being opened up in Orlando.
Okay.
The sponsor is, I forget.
I've never eaten, I like Miami Subs for the gyros. I've had a couple of their burgers. They're pretty good. I like their the curly fries that they have there.
I've actually never been to a Miami Subs.
Really?
Really?
Interesting.
So I guess that's the next one I'm going to have
That
to
should
cross
be
off the list.
a goof field trip or
Good
something.
field trip, exactly. Yeah, that'll be next on the list. Okay, so Mr. Walker only played a third of his games at Coors Field, which a lot of people, the reason why it took so long for him to get into the Hall of Fame is essentially people thinking his stats were boosted by the low air pressure that he was playing in Denver, which there's something to be said.
If that's an argument, then that should be an argument that Gary Sheffield should be in the Hall of Fame because he played in a sea-level place like Miami for so long in his career.
Well, there's the allegation that he did steroids and
Still not proven. I mean, Pouch Rodriguez had that. Mike Piazza had the same allegations.
right.
And hey, come on. If you're not going to punish the Houston Astros, then
We'll get to that in a second.
let's get a Marlin in the Hall of Fame because that's what Gary Sheffield said he would pick as his team.
Really?
Yep.
He only played for them for a couple of years, right?
He played from 93 to 98.
5
That's
years.
that's a long time for a Marlin.
Right, but in the course
That's a long time for a
in the
Marlin.
course of his career, though, that's not that long.
Actually, it's probably the longest in his career because he debuted with the Milwaukee Brewers, had issues there, was traded to San Diego, then was traded to Miami, then was traded to LA, then signed with the Braves, and then signed with the Yankees, and then I think he played for the Tigers and the Mets to round out his career.
Let's find out.
If I am dead on that, then wow, I focus way too much on Gary Sheffield.
All right. Don't look at the screen.
Sorry, Larry Walker. Once again, 10 years and we're just going off on Gary Sheffield now.
Okay, so don't look at the screen. I'm going to see if he... So who was he with first?
The Milwaukee Brewers.
Correct. Then?
San Diego.
Correct. Then?
Florida.
Correct. Then?
Atlanta. Oh, no, Los Angeles.
Correct. Then?
Atlanta.
Correct. Then?
Detroit.
Incorrect.
New York.
Which one?
The Mets. Oh, no, the Yankees. That's right. The Yankees, then Detroit, then New York Mets.
I'll give it to you.
No, I had it the first time.
We're-
We could look at the replay.
Okay.
But I know I had it the
Okay.
first time.
So, high five over the computers
Yay.
for Francisco.
And to Gary Sheffield, if you ever want to come on the show, he's actually a really nice guy now. So he's on MLB Network, I think. So
Yeah, Gary, if you ever want to come on the show, by all means.
I'll be your Hall of Fame campaign manager.
Yeah, and Charles will certainly campaign for you,
I
considering
think-
that you played for the Pinstripes.
I think next year will be his 10th year. I think.
He
When
currently
did he
works this-
retire? What was the last year in Major League Baseball?
2009.
So I think
Well, no.
2010 beginning the first one.
Well, bear in mind though, I think it's 5 years after you
Oh,
retire.
and then okay.
So essentially, you have 15. Well, no. It's a 5-year wait
right.
from when you retire,
Okay.
and then 10 years on top of
So
that.
2025, I guess.
Let's see, 2010,
2024.
21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, so 2024. He's still got a couple more shots. So
let's see, because we talked about this last time when our Lord and Savior and friend of the show, Derek Jeter, got in. That next year is kind of pretty barren as far as Hall of Famers are concerned. And I really do believe, because I think it's his last year, Kurt Schilling will get in next year. Because looking at all his metrics, everything, even the sabermetrics and stuff, he should be in the Hall of Fame. I know a lot of writers hate his political leanings, the way he treated some reports, some stuff that he said after he retired. He had a failed gaming company, gaming studio as well.
Mhm.
But the dude belongs in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's got 3,000 strikeouts. I think he has 300 wins. Two World Series championships. Played in '93 World Series. The Bloody Sock game. All that jazz. And the freaking... Oh, no, 3 World Series championships. The first one in Arizona. And co-MVP with Randy Johnson, that series as well. Actually, he played in 2 of the most memorable playoff series in baseball history. The 2001 World Series and the 2004 American League Championship Series. And he was like the lead guy for a lot of pitching staffs for the Phillies and for the Diamondbacks with Randy Johnson and for the Red Sox. So, look, and once again, the Baseball Hall of Fame, it really should be based on your merits of play, and he's the best pitcher out there that's not in yet, that's retired, and is not an ancient one from back in the 30s or whatever.
I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made, and we won't get into it because this will just
I know, but I just needed to say it.
No, I understand. I mean, statistically, he should be in the Hall of Fame. It's just, it seems...
Gary Sheffield's a more borderline Hall of Famer, I would say. But Schilling, he belongs. I mean, after so long, Burt Blyleven got in there. I think that was through the Veterans Committee.
I think
so. But his was more, he accumulated so many stats because he was just, through longevity, he pitched for so long. Jack Morris, the same thing. Mm-hmm. They pitched for so freaking long that, they accumulated the golden stats for a pitcher.
Right.
But Schilling did it in a shorter amount of time, I think. And once again, those accolades. I don't know did he ever win a Cy Young Award? I'm not even sure. But even if he didn't, he belongs. So, once again, okay, back to Larry Walker. I'm sorry. Sorry, Larry.
Sorry, Larry.
Sorry, you're with your glorious SpongeBob shirt.
No Cy Youngs for him.
Okay. So, but yeah, Larry Walker, one of the, and that was, like you said, the big thing is the stigma of Coors Field, and finally getting over that because, and thank goodness for sabermetrics in this regard, because if this was
even 10 years ago,
2010, you'd have a ton of sports writers that were like, he played at Coors. I mean, of course he racked up all those numbers, but it's like, he would have he racked up those numbers on the road. It wasn't that he just played at Coors Field. I remember, and I guess a lot of things that people don't associate with Coors Field. Coors Field is a massive ballpark. It is massive. They've tried so hard to mitigate the offense that
you've got the humidor.
Let
me do a quick sidetrack here.
Yeah.
Learn a goof fan, I guess. So a humidor was implemented by Major League Baseball in 2001 or 2000. It was certainly early 2000.
Somewhere around somewhere but they had it by the time the Rockies made the run in 2007.
Right. So what it is, MLB noticed that home runs were just getting absolutely blasted out of Coors Field due to the low air pressure. So to kind of even the playing field, they have this, think of it like a wine cooler, like a large wine cooler.
Yeah.
But for baseball.
Big, giant, dedicated room.
Right.
For
baseballs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it keeps it at a humidity level that would essentially negate any sort of air pressure advantage.
What's the effect? What was it? The baseballs contract. That was what in the low pressure altitude of Coors Field. So thus the baseballs get smaller, and thus they become more kind of like golf balls in a sense.
Right.
So that's the effect that they're trying to lower.
Right, but then not just that, but when you're up that high, there are fewer air molecules. So there's less friction and less resistance against the ball. I mean, even with the humidor, baseballs still there are still more home runs, I think, than average at Coors Field, but the number has been brought to a somewhat reasonable level.
So, it's kind of funny that baseball has tried so hard to mitigate Coors Field, and now we have a juice baseball. So, it's like, oh well. Imagine the juice baseball without the humidor.
Oh man, that would be fun to see.
That would, and let's add the Houston Astros stealing signs at the same time.
Oh boy, we'll have to
Oh,
cover the Manfred thing.
I'm ready for that, but that's a whole other side. The other thing about Coors Field that they've raised their outfield walls, like they've added more wall to it, and it's still, they're still having a hard time with it.
You can't fight nature, man.
Yeah.
Nature always wins.
And it's hard for them to sign free agent pitchers there.
Right.
They have to home grow their own pitchers in order to do it. But, they made one World Series, and they've had some playoff runs, so it's not impossible. It just, it'll take, it's a little tougher for them. I mean, I don't know how that has helped the Denver Broncos winning Super Bowls or the Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup, but the Rockies have fallen short. The Nuggets haven't gotten anything done yet. They have a good team now, but still. That's an aside. Sorry.
Indoor stadiums probably have less of an effect.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never heard of anything that like the hockey puck. I don't know if I've heard of the hockey puck reacting differently in Denver than anywhere else.
The only thing I could really think of that would change would be distance and passes in football. And then certainly also visiting teams have a tough time.
It's always a lot of teams get to Denver early just so their players can at least,
and even still they give them oxygen masks.
Acclimate themselves to the place.
It's like I would feel terrible for the Dolphins having to go up to Denver.
Yeah.
Because Miami is practically at sea level.
It's the opposite. Well, I don't know. The most opposite would be New Orleans, actually, because it's below sea level.
They're actually below sea level. So.
And they're indoors.
Right. I was actually just about to get to that. BU also field goal records tend to be set.
Jason Elam had the field goal record for the NFL. He was a Denver Bronco.
Right, and also Matt Prater, who currently holds the record, set it in Denver.
Yep.
So that is more akin to hitting a home run because the ball has to carry 64 yards.
I mean, there was that legendary home run derby in '98 where Ken Griffey Jr. won that one.
Right.
Which I think Mark McGwire did participate in, but Sammy Sosa didn't in the middle of that home run race that year. The 99 one was really good, too.
Yeah.
The 99 home run derby was,
That was in Boston, right?
Yeah, that was the Fenway Park one. Yeah, that was a good one. And then Pedro Martinez's legendary performance in the All-Star game, which is, there's a video by Foolish Baseball about Pedro Martinez's, his prime. And that there's an argument that he could be, you could label him the greatest pitcher of all time just by looking at his prime, which started in Montreal and kind of a little bit before the Red Sox won the 2004 World Series, where Pedro Martinez was just this is and he did it at a hitter-friendly ballpark in Fenway. Right. So it's wow. Anyways, Morris, gosh darn it, Larry Walker, I'm so sorry. And you were a member of the 94 Expos, the infamous 94 Expos.
Thanks, Seelig.
Yeah.
Thanks, Loria.
Loria was not the owner of the team at that time, actually. Don Fear.
Thanks, Seelig.
Don Fear was MLB
Don
PA.
Fear. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Very appreciated.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And you guys have screwed us over with Houston Astros now because that also affected this. Anyways.
Hey, do you know what time it is?
Okay. Let's do it. And
it's a word from our sponsors.
If there is any noise from the next door, they're a video editing place.
Actually, hold on a second. Yeah, it is actually being picked up by the microphones.
Okay,
It's
that's fine.
It's very faint, and I think our voices will cover over.
Oh,
it.
that's fine. No, I'm saying, but they're actually a video editing place, so that's why it's some. So
Yeah.
Anyways.
So, word from our non-sponsors. This is the time.
I wonder if they have sound panels. We should go in there and look. Because that would help us with
that would
echo
be
and
great.
all that stuff.
So word from our non-sponsors. It's our weekly segment where we give a shout out to not necessarily people that sponsor us because we don't really have sponsors. Although Eve Online, is it Eve Online or what was one of our sponsors?
The last one was Eve Online.
Eve Online. We
Eve
have those
Online was the last
Astro
one.
headsets, I think.
Astro Gaming headsets. We've had something with like a zombie game as well. We had Xbox at one point.
Really?
Yeah, we did. If you look back on one of our episodes, that was Xbox was
Nice.
one of our sponsors.
So we actually do have some sponsors who have netted us 39 cents.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
30 cents away from being really nice.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, I'll get to that in a second. Just remind me. So this is a shout out of companies that we enjoy, products that we enjoy, even places that we enjoy. It's just our chance to give them a shout out, and who knows, maybe they'll actually become a sponsor if they like our content. Francisco, I started last week. You go.
Okay, so let me see. I had one too. Oh yeah, that thing.
For anyone that doesn't see this, which is literally everyone.
I literally
except for
pointed
two
it
of us.
like as if I was on cam and somebody could see what I was pointing at. But essentially, hold on, let me look on Amazon to see the official name for this. Oh, I do have the official name. Hold on, I still have the instruction here. It's called the Jersey Genius. That's what it's called, the Jersey Genius. So if you want, you can look for it on
I thought you were
screen.
talking about the jersey.
No, the jersey is nice too, but it's the actual thing that the jersey is hanging from. So, actually, I'll do a demonstration for you here. So I don't know if you have it on screen yet, but
I think I do.
so
Yeah, I've got it.
So the Jersey Genius is essentially a nice way to hang your jerseys without like the trouble of framing your jerseys. A lot of people frame their jerseys, like their autographed jerseys or what have you, or commemorative jerseys. But that takes a lot of time and effort. And I have a ton of jerseys that I like to display, so I don't have the money and or the space to have them all framed.
Right.
So I decided I looked on Amazon. I found this thing. It was like the first thing that popped up, like jersey hanger. That's what I searched in, and boom, the Jersey Genius. And essentially, it is like a clothes hanger, but it comes with a thing. You can nail it on the wall, and you can take it off really easily. And it has these interlocking, like, I don't know if these are patent or patent pending, whatever you want to call it, but like this interlocking, like, I don't know, kind of like Connects. Kind of, if anybody remembers Connects. But
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. That's why you hear that clicking.
yeah, so
They have these little kind of notches in them.
Yeah, that rotate, and you can shape it to basically any way you want it. And it helps because different jerseys have different shapes. Football jerseys are a little different than baseball jerseys.
As I'm showing on screen, you've got a baseball jersey, a football jersey.
Basketball
and a basketball
jerseys
jersey,
are different.
Which is what Francisco has. He has I don't know what the hell
The,
it's called.
the Miami Heat,
It's like Vice City.
the Vice Knights uniform, which
so that's
is
the black
that's
one
the
with
black
the
one.
Blue and pink accents.
Yes, exactly. So that's the
Dwayne Wade.
the black
naturally.
version of that one. They have the white one, they have the pink one, and then this year they debuted the blue ones.
This is the nicest one in my opinion.
Yeah, I like the blue ones, surprisingly. Yeah, it's not a Miami Heat color traditionally, but it's worked out pretty nicely this season. They've paired it with like a yellow color for their promotions, and I actually do believe they're going to go with yellow next year because it's actually looked really nice with them. Anyways, that's an aside. The Jersey Genius, though, this is my second jersey that I've hung up. My past jersey, I put up a hockey jersey as the first guinea pig of it, and it's a Legend of Zelda hockey jersey, meaning it's awesome. But it's really nice. And it has like those interlocking things, especially for a basketball jersey, because it's probably the weirdest shaped of all the jerseys. Because like a hockey jersey is just giant. It's just a giant it's just a giant sweater. But if you're looking for something to like, and you can order multiple of them, like they have it on screen, I think too. Like like people, their man caves or what have you, with a bunch of jerseys there. It's not perfect, so, like you can see some of the stuff jutting out from the jerseys, but for those who like to switch them out all the time, like me in my office, I love switching out my hats and all that stuff. It's perfect for me. So
I actually pulled up a picture of the
Jersey
Legend
Genius?
of Zelda jersey.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's custom made from Geeky Jerseys. That's the company that made. Me and my sister bought matching Zelda ones.
His, of course, the nameplate is FJOJR.
Yeah, with number 21. But the story behind that is I've been using that as my name in Zelda since like I played my first ever Zelda, which was Majora's Mask in 64. So it was a gaming reference, really, more than anything else. And thus, you get the channel from there. And my sister had her name, Marina, and that was also a gaming reference. So, because that's what she used, and even though she was playing as Link as a boy, they would just call her Marina. And the latest Zelda, Breath of the Wild, he's just called Link, and I think Link's Awakening, the same thing. So, they've taken that away from us. Gosh darn it. Oh well. Promo code. Gosh, I've been running on long for this, but I guess I'm making up for the fact that we don't have Charles here.
Right.
Promo code. Not a Jersey moron. I'm a Jersey genius.
Very nice. All right. I don't know. I had one, but I haven't actually used it yet, so I guess I can't really say. Basically, I got one of those things that you stick on your dashboard that holds your phone.
Oh, okay. Like I have one in mind. Yeah.
Right. I finally decided to get one.
Thank
so
God.
I'm looking forward to.
Is it like the suction cup ones? Okay, good. Because like they have the ones that hang on your on like your air conditioning vent, and it's kind of like
Because they are cheaper, but it's like nah.
No, the other ones are a lot more secure actually than the air vents. You don't lose the vents as well, especially in South Florida when it gets hot.
Right.
And gosh darn it, Siri, I wasn't talking to you. She almost ordered a new one for me.
My non-sponsor is going to be Roberto Luongo.
Roberto Luongo.
Bobby Lou.
Okay.
I know, kind of out of left field here, mixing up sporting terms, I guess. But his jersey is going to be retired on March 7th against Les Canadiens. I hope
Les Canadiens de Montreal.
What?
Les Canadiens de Montreal.
Very French. And we will likely be going to that game to pay our respects to Bobby Lou.
Possibly.
Which should be a really cool event. I've actually never been to any sort of a
jersey retirement.
Or really any sort of ceremony.
Yeah.
Whether it's for a championship or a jersey or whatever.
You haven't, really?
I have not.
Not even for UCF?
Not even for UCF.
Oh, wow. Like the following season after they won, their conference championships or won the bowl games?
That's not true. I've been to one. It's not the standard one that you see all the time, which is where it's held prior to a game. They had a celebration event in 2014 after UCF won the Fiesta Bowl, held at what was then known as UCF Stadium. UCF Arena. What was it called? I don't freaking remember. But yeah, Roberto Luongo. Let me pull up a picture of him because he the man. Even though whenever I saw him in person, I rooted against him because I'm a Tampa Bay Lightning fan. But props to the dude.
He's probably one of the best personalities in the NHL over the past, I mean, I guess since Twitter started happening, because he was originally drafted by the Islanders, and this is probably an early let's haul y'all because he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
He is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
But he was drafted by the Islanders, and then Mike Milbury was Mike Milbury, and he traded him. The following season, he drafted Rick DiPietro, one of the worst. And we have been over this in the past episode of how horrible Rick DiPietro ended up being. Not through any, not because he wasn't a good dude or whatever, but
he caught the injury bug in a massive way.
And yet the Islanders kept paying him, in a massive way as well. I think he only had one healthy season, which got him that massive contract. And then he became the poster child for horrible contracts in NHL history, even sports history, really. Anyways, so Luongo gets traded to Florida along with Olli Jokinen. So the Islanders gave up possibly playoff teams, but the Panthers didn't make the playoffs with those guys either. But they, out of two inept franchises at that moment, the Panthers were the least inept. Which is saying something for them. Anyways, Roberto Luongo then gets traded. A trade that he didn't want to happen, but he was going to be a free agent to the Vancouver Canucks, and they gave him a massive contract that I think was one of the reasons that spurred one of the lockouts as well, was his contract. But Canucks go to the Stanley Cup Final in 2011. They lose in 7 games, and Canucks fans are ungrateful, and they settle all the blame on the goalie, even though Game 7, the Canucks offense was non-existent. So a lot of pressure on Luongo. His backup, Corey Schneider, a lot of people wanted him to become the full-time starter. And let me say this. Luongo probably, out of all that pressure, he found a way to turn it on its side and make it humorous through his personality, his relationship with his backups, especially Corey Schneider and Eddie Lack, because he was he loved those guys and they loved him. He would help them and all that stuff. Even when he was benched, he would help those guys. And then he created a secret Twitter account.
Yeah.
Strombone1.
And the thing is, it is blatantly obvious that it is him.
It's basically a silhouette of a goalie with a question mark on it. And at first, nobody was sure who it was. At first, it was kind of vague. It's okay, this could be an NHL player. Okay, and then it was okay, this is definitely an NHL goalie. And then it was this is Roberto Luongo, isn't it? And he's still not, there's still no check mark next to it. It's still a mystery, even though really, at this point, he's admitted that it is him. But he hasn't bothered to make it official with a check mark or anything. It doesn't say Roberto Luongo. It's always been Strombone. And
I have it up right now.
Oh, yeah. He's funny. He is legit funny. He's got this wit about him that's even something simple, he'll make it funny. And I'm hoping he does something about the Houston Astros. At this point, I feel like we need that from Roberto Luongo.
Now, getting a bit more serious here, but I had always respected Luongo, but you might see where I'm going with this in a second. This was perhaps Luongo's shining moment after the Parkland shooting.
Okay.
Actually,
believe
it or not,
I was gonna take it another way.
Just over 2 years ago, actually.
Yeah. Valentine's Day 2018.
It was 2 years and 4 days ago, as a matter of fact. It's almost like this was his David Ortiz moment.
Right.
It was LeBron James, Kobe moment.
It just happened that the Panthers were on the road when it happened. They were in Vancouver, which is also kind of wow, okay. So he was in Vancouver, his former city, and his family, they had lived in Vancouver, but after like for a bit. But his wife from South Florida, his kids were born here in South Florida, and he kept his home in South Florida even after getting traded to Vancouver. So he lived in Parkland, and so he passed by the school. I mean, you pass by the school on the Sawgrass Expressway if you're going down. So he would pass, but you pass by it every day, and so he hears of this school shooting, and every parent, when a school shooting happens, like suddenly they want to take their kids out and stuff because they don't know how bad it could get. I remember when Columbine happened, and like my parents didn't want me to go to school. Like I remember when that happened. I remember like sometimes like there were like shootings on the last day of school because kids, whatever. And my parents would not let me go to school on the last day of school. They knew I had good grades and whatever, I passed. So it was like, don't go to school. Okay, that's fine. But he was concerned, as any parent would be. Any parent would feel the same way and the same fear. And the Panthers were the first professional sports team down here to play the next home game. The Miami Heat were on the road. And
Dolphins, of course,
the Dolphins.
In the off
Well,
season.
yeah, at that point it was the off season. The Marlins were in off season or getting ready for spring training. So it was the Panthers, and they're the only team that plays in Broward, which is where Parkland is. So they were the home team for this. And like you said, this was his David Ortiz after the Boston Marathon bombing moment. And
he rose to the occasion.
yes, he was the guy.
He was the right person at the right time.
He was
to give that speech.
Yes, exactly. So want to go on a lighter note?
Yes, absolutely.
He's also a legend because he actually he took a massive poop during a game. You ever heard that story?
I have not.
You have not heard of Roberto Luongo's poop story?
I have not.
Mid-game. Oh gosh, you have to look it up. He had to do his business. I think they actually put on the backup goaltender while he ran into the locker room to go to the bathroom.
Oh man! Please.
Unlike Paul Pierce, who couldn't hold it in, Roberto Luongo was able to make it to the toilet.
He apparently got interviewed about it on TSN. That is incredible.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Well, Luongo, I will say this: despite that incident, you are definitely not a shitty person or a shitty athlete. It is my hope that we will be there for your much-deserved jersey retirement in 2 weeks.
Yeah. He's going to be the first actual player to get his number retired. The Panthers have 2 numbers retired already, but they're not for players.
I guess one of them is for, Barger or whoever the...
No, that's the Marlins.
Marlins.
That's the Marlins. And they unretired that number because Loria.
Right.
And no respect for history. But it's Wayne Huizenga, first owner of the team.
Right.
And Bill Torrey, first team president / GM. And, of course, legendary Islanders GM of the dynasty. So
Luongo would be the first player to have
the first actual player, and number 1 fitting for him. And he's the longest tenured Panther. I think he's played, I think Jonathan Huberdeau is getting close to playing the most games in franchise history. He's got the most points in franchise history. But Luongo is one of the few guys. The Panthers are kind of like the Marlins. Not many guys stick around for very long. And Luongo is one of the few that you can look at and be like, that's our guy. And he was good. So I remember going back to his game after he was traded back to Florida, going to the first game when he came back. And it was magical. It was fun, and so yeah.
Hopefully, we
one
can
of the-
see his career come full circle.
Lucky enough, I mean, South Florida is kind of lucky in that sense of having the 4 pro sports down here, because you get to see these guys who are been the best of their sports playing as a home team player.
Right.
We've seen obviously Dan Marino. We've seen Ichiro Suzuki here. We've seen Jaromir Jagr here. We've seen LeBron James here. It's one of the few
Dwayne
things.
Wade,
Of
and
course,
Chris Bosh.
Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh.
By the way, just as a side note,
Roberto Luongo.
Chris Bosh, NBA,
Jason
screw
Taylor.
you. NBA, screw you.
Oh,
for not putting.
this is one.
Well, hold on. Let me end my. Let's
end the segment,
let's
and then we can
table
go.
that for a second.
We can move it to Gottlieb's Goons.
Okay. So Roberto Luongo, congratulations on a very incredible career, being a wonderful representative for South Florida and really the game of hockey in general. Promo code 1. All right. Now,
Goons.
Gottlieb's Goons is our regular segment where we call out real idiots in the sports world.
Yeah. Antonio Brown. And
Doug Gottlieb, obviously.
Doug, yeah, he's the namesake.
He was our first goon. We hadn't even considered the concept yet. But when his thing came out, what was it, the MLI, name, likeness, image?
Yeah.
When he came out on Twitter about that, we said we need to start a new segment. And it just so happened that we had an incredible alliteration present, Gottlieb Goon. So now it's our regular segment of who are the gooniest goons in the sports world.
This is kind of funny you bring up Chris Bosh, and it's an NBA thing, which is not your forte, but
I know injustice when I see it.
Oh yeah, because this is once again one of the reasons Charles is against Hall of Fame designations and that type of stuff, because it's all just for show. And of course, I mean, I like honoring the best players, but there's a politicalness or whatever you want to call it, biases behind it, i.e. Curt Schilling, i.e. Derek Jeter not being unanimous. And here's another example. Chris Bosh is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, and yet a lot of NBA people are like, yes, he is. He's got the numbers, he's got the All-Star appearances, he's got the championships, and yes, his career trajectory changed when he went from Toronto to Miami, but he sacrificed the most for that team and still played at an all-star level. And he is also responsible for one of the best moments in NBA history, because his rebound and his pass to Ray Allen, which I did see in person, created one of the most memorable moments ever. He's a great person. He's a smart guy. I mean, he went to Georgia Tech. And I think he actually went to Georgia Tech and learned something at that technical institute. Okay? Obviously not on their football team, which they probably could have used. But he is like an ambassador for the NBA. Like, you can't think of a better guy. You can't think of a better guy for basketball. He's very into coding at this point, teaching kids to learn computer code, because it's like the wave of the future. Digital is going to be the future. And he's learned Spanish now. I mean, he's from Texas, but he made it a point when he came to Miami to learn Spanish, because he didn't learn it up in Canada, that's for sure. And he's got a wonderful family. His career got derailed by the blood clots.
He would probably still be playing.
Yeah.
Or at least pretty close.
He'd be He may
have, like, just retired.
Yeah, or this would be like his farewell season or whatever. Who knows? Or he could be on another team trying to help out, kind of like Vince Carter, that type of thing. But either way, he probably would have still been playing. He probably might have been with Dwayne Wade for that finale of his career. It would have been him, and then then Bosch, and then LeBron. Like, that would have been pretty nice. But unfortunately, he got derailed twice by blood clots. He tried to come back. The Heat and him had a falling out because he wanted to play. The Heat didn't want him to play. And not just for the money, but because of
The love of the game.
But the Heat were looking out for him as well. Like, it wasn't just a money thing. Like, oh, we'll have his contract off the books. It's like, we don't want you to die because it's happened in other sports. And so they finally, last year, when they retired his number, they finally made up. The team made up. He's been at a lot of Heat games, just as an ambassador for the team now. So it's fantastic, and shame on these writers for not putting him in at this moment. My other goon. You want to get to the other goon?
I think we have to.
Okay.
Wait.
And I think we would be joined by a large slew of Major League Baseball players on this as well. And what were you waiting for?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I mean, Rob Manfred.
Rob Manfred.
The clown missioner of baseball, as I call him.
Anyone that follows us on Twitter, Francisco kind of does most of the work. Is kind of our social media guru, and the clown emoji has kind of become his best friend over the past couple of weeks.
It's, at first it was like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed kind of a feeling with Major League Baseball and this Houston Astros controversy. But now it's like, now it's turning into genuine anger.
Actually, get this. This is 1 hour ago. So, just a bit of background here. So, if you haven't heard about what the Houston Astros did, first off, please, how's that rock that you've been looking
Exactly. How's Patrick Starr along with you?
Yes. Just in short, the Houston Astros stole signs in the 2017, 2018, and 2019, supposedly 2019, definitely 2017 and 2018 seasons. They had a camera in their home ballpark out in center field that was looking live at the catcher giving pitch signs.
Mm-hmm.
If a pitch being thrown was an off-speed or breaking ball, they would have someone in the dugout hit a trash can.
Actually, this is more...
Oh, that's... He actually just hit a trash can. Would hit a trash can to let the player know that a slower pitch was coming.
And then they graduated.
They graduated to, and again, there's no confirmed basis of this allegation, but it's pretty damn clear that they started using like buzzers or some other method where instead of having to use the trash can, which is pretty obvious, you can hear it, they would just get a little buzz and they would know, okay, it's an off-speed pitch. The most damning evidence is that after Jose Altuve hit a walk-off home run against Aroldis Chapman, who, bear in mind, is probably one of the toughest pitchers to hit, just by virtue of the fact that basically every one of
his average speed is 100.
His average fastball speed is 100, and he mixes that with a pretty decent slider, which is over 20 miles per hour, nearly 20 miles per hour slower in some instances. So the fact, if you can hit anything of his, that in of itself is a miracle. If you're able to hit a home run off of him, that's even more so. There was a famous home run in the 2017 World Series where, I forget who it was, but one of the Indians players hit a game-tying home run off of Chapman in the World Series. He went freaking nuts. Jose Altuve hit the game series winning, the American League Championship Series winning home run off of Aroldis Chapman, and the first thing he does when he's coming home he's waving his finger to the players, telling them, "Don't take off my jersey," and he's holding it closed.
Yeah, and he's kind of like flapping it as well,
right?
Like somewhere near like his, I think
his chest.
Yeah, his chest, like somewhere like I don't know
like
if it's
his right chest.
His right chest, yeah.
So anyway, that's been over and done with multiple times. Everyone knows the story, unless you've been living under a rock, in which point I hope that rock is nice. So the story behind all this recently is that Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, came with a pretty lenient punishment for the Astros in the grand scheme of things. They were fined $5 million, which is admittedly the maximum that a team can be fined under the CBA. So it sucks. $5 million is pennies for a major owner who make millions each year and are 9-figure people. But the general manager and the manager were suspended, but were eventually fired by the team, although it wasn't necessary. But that's it. That's the only punishment they had. Oh, and they lost first and second round draft picks for the next, 2 seasons?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So Manfred was defending his...
So spring training. So all this happened in the off season. Spring training finally started last week.
In full. Pitchers and catchers.
Yeah, pitchers. Well, now it's in full. All teams in Florida and Arizona, their full squad is there.
This weekend.
Exactly. So this is, and remember, this is spring training for everybody. It's spring training for umpires, it's spring training for coaches, players, staff, and media. So we're all and all this started happening in the off season. So we're all getting acclimated back into the fold for baseball. So the biggest press conference was every team has an introductory press conference. Every single one of them. Usually an owner or team representative is there along with the manager and some significant players to kind of take the first questions for spring training. Hey, how was your off season? What was your workout? This and that jazz. And, what do you expect for the next season? Houston Astros, everybody focused on West Palm Beach, Florida, my hometown. Gosh darn it, man.
Coincidentally enough, it's very rare, especially in Florida, but there are some facilities that teams share. Most of the time, it's just one team. Like Lakeland is just the Tigers.
There's
Fort
more.
Charlotte is
Yeah.
just the Rays. Wherever the hell the Braves are now is just them.
Mm-hmm. And Braves just opened a new spring training complex this year.
That's actually where Manfred gave a press conference.
We'll get there. So
Dunedin is for the Blue Jays, etc., etc. West Palm is one of those few shared facilities.
Home of the Astros and the Washington Nationals, which was our last World Series.
That was the team that they beat last year.
Exactly.
In the World Series. So that'll make for interesting matchups.
Jim Crane, it was Jim Crane, new manager Dusty Baker, because one of the punishments that Major League Baseball levied on the Astros was 1 year suspension for A.J. Hinch, their manager, and the GM, who I forgot his name already, but it doesn't matter. Once again, and then the Astros subsequently fired both of them anyways, just to try and mitigate the backlash, if you will, even though we're getting to it. They're doing just keeps snowballing. They're doing a horrible job of this. Whoever's doing PR for Major League Baseball and the Houston Astros needs to be fired because they are not doing a good job right now. Anyways, Jim Crane gets asked the question, and he about if the cheating helped them, and he says that no, it didn't help them. There's no way we can tell that cheating helped them. And so one of the reporters, she asked him a follow-up question, I think maybe 5 minutes later or whatever.
He meaning Manfred, correct? Or
No, this is Jim Crane first. Okay. And she's like, okay, so if you're saying that the Astros stealing signs and cheating didn't affect the outcome of the games, why are you guys apologizing? Because what's the point of apologizing for something that ultimately didn't affect anything? That's like me apologizing for eating a ham sandwich.
Gotta love journalists. A good journalist will cut through the bullshit.
And this is spring training. This is like these journalists, maybe they've been off, but of course a lot of them know they cover other stuff. But in any case. And then he's like, well, I didn't say that. And so he's like, well, we're apologizing for breaking the rules. Okay, so you broke the rules. You were cheating. So, and I've talked to my dad about this. This is kind of, and I've used this as an example. This is kind of like knowing, like you're about to take a math test, and somebody's giving you the answers as you're doing it. That's essentially it. Now you still have to get the piece of paper, read the question, make sure you're writing on the right line, and be able to know how to write the number 2 and stuff like that. That's basically what the Astros' position are, the players are. But it's still cheating. You're still gaining an advantage.
Mike Trout made a good point.
Oh, we're building this up. I want to go this chronologically.
Okay.
So that was Jim Crane. Dusty Baker's trying to, he had nothing to do with this. Dusty Baker's an old baseball soul. He had nothing to do with this. And their players are doing such a horrible job. Jose Altuve looked a little remorseful, but it doesn't seem like they're sorry for doing it. They're sorry for getting caught.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
And Alex Bregman, he hasn't been doing a good job about this. In any case, let's move forward now. Rob Manfred did his investigation, and we found out that the Houston Astros players were given immunity, meaning nothing was going to happen to them.
As long as they spoke truthfully.
And ultimately, the commissioner didn't find any evidence of cheating, which is impossible because John Boy, a YouTuber, who after I think Ken Rosenthal broke the story, broke it even further by actually investigating the Astros games and hearing the trash cans. And he blew up because of it. So how can a YouTuber be ahead of you? And okay, hold on, let me gather my thoughts. Okay, so that happens to Marlon. Then our good old boy Carlos Correa. He made it worse.
A lot worse.
Okay, let's rewind a little bit. Cody Bellinger. Now, can you explain who Cody Bellinger is, Andrew?
Cody Bellinger is
what he said.
Cody Bellinger, I forget what position.
Los Angeles Dodgers.
I forget what position.
I think he's an outfielder.
But he's a slugger, regular MVP candidate for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Defending National League MVP at this moment.
Right. And his Dodgers lost to the Astros in the World Series in 2017.
And lost to the Red Sox, who are also being investigated.
In 2018.
There you go. And Alex Cora
was the manager of the Red Sox in 2018.
And in 2017
was on the Astros staff.
And let's not forget our good old buddy Carlos Beltran,
who was on the Astros in 2017.
And for many people was the ringleader of this cheating, stealing scandal.
So when he was hired as the Mets manager in 2020, he was summarily fired
because the Mets have enough problems as it is. Even though a lot of people predict them to be pretty good this year, but we'll see.
So Bellinger kind of broke the dam here.
So many layers to this onion.
Right. He kind of broke the dam of public opinion from the players. I forget who it was, but there was some article that I read that described how baseball players have kind of an omerta as which I had to look it up, but apparently it's a code of honor and silence
Amongst
the
brothers.
mafia.
Oh, okay. Kind of like, okay.
Basically, don't rat out anyone.
Yeah.
Don't talk negatively about anyone.
Like, the Major League Baseball Players Union is the strongest sports union of the 4 major sports. The NFL players would kill to have the Major League Baseball players leverage in negotiations. And we've seen the baseball players take it to the extreme. The 94 World Series. Rest in peace to the Montreal Expos. So to have players turning on their own is significant.
Like I said,
and this is the first major one that talked. He's the first one. Sorry.
Right. So like I said, it's like a code of don't talk badly about your fellow player. You just don't. It's kind of like you don't gawk at a home run. It's kind of one of those unwritten rules. But Bellinger not only broke the code, he smashed it with a sledgehammer, pile driver. He just absolutely obliterated the code.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was beautiful. He
said, essentially, the Astros, this is basically paraphrasing, the Astros didn't deserve to win that 2017 World Series, that they stole it from them, from the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that Jose Altuve stole the MVP award from Aaron Judge that year. That's huge. Not only was it your team stole it from our team, your best player stole it from another team's best player, a team I have nothing to do with, a team that probably would have been my opponent in that World Series. So that's the first major ball to drop. But then the biggest...
Carlos Correa.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. But he had an interview with Ken Rosenthal from West Palm Beach.
Rosenthal was the one that broke the story initially,
and
for the Athletic.
Basically one of baseball's top writers. He's like the Woj of baseball. So I don't know whose bright idea was this for the Houston Astros. Why did you let this man talk? Basically, he's like, he said that Cody Bellinger shouldn't be talking unless he knows the facts. I can tell you this, that Jose Altuve didn't want to use the system. He actually, when we tried to use the system with him, he was angry. He didn't want us to use the system with him. You can check, like, we barely ever use the trash can with him. Oh, you've admitted to using the trash can. That's nice. Wow. Oh God, your lawyers would really hate you if you're already incriminating yourself in your testimony right there and then. But
Your Honor,
look,
my friend here, we tried to get him to use the knife, but he didn't use it that much.
Exactly, as we were killing the guy. Okay, so that therein, boom, and okay. He's like, you shouldn't be talking about players, about the facts you don't know about. Oh, okay, Mr. Correa, you're talking right now. Can you please give us the facts? Because you seem to know a lot right now. You've already admitted to using the trash cans right here and now. What else do we not know? Of course, he wasn't going to say that because he isn't that stupid, I guess, or he wasn't smart enough to figure out what he was doing. I don't know. In any case, there are certain single-celled organisms that would have done better in that moment. Anyways, so that happens. The next ball drops from another player. And who was this player, Andrew?
It was Turner, right?
No. The best player on the planet.
Mike Trout.
A guy who never talks. At least never says anything of much note because he's a quiet, mild-mannered guy. From southern New Jersey, kind of Philadelphia area. He loves weather. He really loves weather.
I can't blame him. Weather is absolutely fascinating.
He really loves it. Like, he would have been a meteorologist if he wasn't a Major League Baseball player. Comes out and says he doesn't have. He lost a lot of respect for a lot of guys over there, meaning the Houston Astros. And he said, "Man, if I knew what was coming, it would be pretty fun." This is a guy that doesn't say anything controversial. He is the best player on the planet, and he said this. So there you go. And then Rob Manfred does an interview with Carl Ravage of ESPN.
I have the quote up, the best quote.
Please.
Bear in mind, MLB Network, which is supposedly, the coverage of all news of Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
When Manfred was doing this press conference, they were showing some random movie.
Right. This was on ESPN with Carl Ravage, right?
Right, but they could have covered it.
Yeah, but of course.
And a lot of people are suggesting the movie should have been 8 Men Out. Which, for anyone that doesn't know, 8 Men Out is a movie that details the Black Sox scandal.
1919, Chicago White Sox throwing the World Series against the Reds. Makes sense. Anyways, continue.
So, Manfred, in this press conference, said a lot of really bad stuff that really hurt his image, and hurt just baseball's image in general. But here is the quote of the day. The idea of... He was responding to a question about people that were saying that the Astros should be stripped of the World Series, or even an asterisk put next to it. He said, and I quote, the idea of an asterisk, or asking for a piece of metal back, seems like a futile act. People will always know something was different about the 2017 season, and whether we made that decision right or wrong, we undertook a thorough investigation and had the intestinal fortitude to share the results of the investigation, even when those results were not very pretty. Rob Manfred called the Commissioner's Trophy,
the World Series Championship
World
Trophy.
Series Trophy, a piece of metal. In theory, he is correct. It is technically a piece of metal.
Tell that to the Tiffany company, which makes that metal, by the way.
But the flippant nature of that quote just goes to show that he does not understand the gravity of this situation.
Okay, so when you have the branding for these sports, the 4 major pro sports, I can't, and even soccer, really. And look at the World Cup trophy as well. It's one of the most coveted trophies in the world. The Olympic medals, all that stuff.
They're all made of metal.
Yeah, the Olympic medals, the Vince Lombardi trophy, the Stanley Cup, the Larry O'Brien trophy. Look, the NFL, the Super Bowl logo, front and center in the middle of that logo, is the Lombardi trophy. NHL, Stanley Cup playoffs. That's what they call it. They don't call it the NHL playoffs. They call it the Stanley Cup playoffs. That trophy. The NBA, the Larry O'Brien trophy is front and center on their logos. I mean,
and not to mention that they have a representation of it, maybe not the trophy itself, on the back of the jersey.
Exactly. Every team, every franchise that has at least one NBA championship
has a gold tab on the back of the collar
with the silhouette of the trophy,
and then X for how many times they won it.
So Miami has a 3X next to theirs. The Raptors have a 1X. The Celtics have 18X.
Right.
And teams that haven't won, like the Jazz,
but
nothing.
That is a symbol of this team has accomplished. They have climbed the mountaintop.
I even wanted to, like, I was hoping, like, since Nike moved over to Major League Baseball as the provider, like, maybe baseball would do it too. Like, hey, Marlins have 2 of them. They happened a long time ago now, but they have two of them, you know. One of the few things I can hang my hat on. But okay, so you've lessened the value of your championship trophy, the commissioner's trophy, which I changed on Wikipedia today as just a piece of metal. And I've shown it to Andrew. I've posted it. It's already been changed back. You can check it out on @Sports Goofs on Instagram or @sports_goofs on our Twitter page. The Wikipedia vandalism that I did, which is always fun.
And no, we don't necessarily advocate the vandalization of a Wikipedia page.
Only when it's supremely hilarious and not harmful.
And when it's blatantly obvious that it's not true. You know, not to mislead people, it's blatantly obvious that Francisco here was making a joke.
Yeah.
I've actually done it myself. I won't say what I've done, but I have done it a couple of times.
So you've lessened the value of your trophy, which is a symbol of all the hard work that a team from spring training all the way through October, all the sacrifices, everything from the ushers to the owner has done.
I'm going to pull up a picture here.
That championship. All the heartache. All the heartache a team like the Chicago Cubs, 2016, those fans, 108 years to have that trophy in their stadium, that they can go, you know, take their children. The generations of families never saw that trophy. And it's just a piece of metal. Oh my God. And so Rob Manfred says this and players go off. Trevor Bauer. Have you seen Trevor Bauer's video? I sent you Trevor Bauer's video.
I didn't get a chance to look at it yet.
Oh, you need to see his rant.
Well, here, I'm going to pull up a picture here because I want to...
And by the way, remember the whole MLB playoff format changing controversy that we saw last week? A lot of people are saying, oh, that's just Major League Baseball trying to distract us from this scandal, which I actually wouldn't put it far for Major League Baseball to do right now because they've done a horrible job with this. Maybe their PR firm's like, let's say we're going to change the playoff format.
Well, let me just add this, though, because this is...
And there's the piece of metal right in front of us on the screen.
Right. I just want to point something out here that kind of adds to...
A beautiful trophy, by the way. One that Major League Baseball doesn't really use very much in their iconography. So it's like, oh. Okay.
But it is a very pretty trophy. But let me talk about this iconography a bit.
This is the second version of the trophy, BT Dubs.
Right.
This was introduced in 2000. I remember because the Marlins won the first version of the new design.
So the new version of the design is kind of tough to tell, but the bump in the middle there is a baseball.
Yeah, it's thinner than the old version. That's one.
It's the platinum or whatever white color.
It's like the PS3 Slim of the World Series trophy compared to the PS3 original.
And it has gold laces in it, so it looks like a baseball. But then the more prominent feature is the flags. There are 30 of them,
representing each team.
So think about what he's saying here. He's saying, as you mentioned, it's a piece of metal that families, grown men, women, children were breaking down in tears after the Cubs finally won.
Yeah. Visiting gravestones of their family members, putting championship gear in front of it.
And the same goes for any trophy. They are all technically made of metal. Right. But it's what that piece of metal represents.
Well, not the BCS championship. That was glass, but...
Although
it's on a metal base.
Although technically speaking, the BCS trophy that you're talking about is actually the one awarded to the AP National Champion.
Okay, sorry.
Trivia master here.
Mm-hmm. I should have known.
Waterford Crystal from, I want to say Ireland?
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, he, by saying that, essentially disrespects the hundreds of teams that have won the World Series. The World Series is
all those legendary.
It's almost 120 years old.
The first World Series
was 1903.
Right. 1904 wasn't played. 94 wasn't played.
So in that history, since 1903, there have only been off track here. There have only been 2 times the World Series not been played. First time was because the other team just didn't feel like it. And then the second time was because of Selig and fear. So it's, I don't know how long the trophy has been used, but the sporting event it represents is certainly one of the longest.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah, I think only the Stanley Cup is older.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to call that a piece of metal is just disgusting.
I tweeted
and that's the freaking commissioner of baseball.
I tweeted at the Stanley Cup on Twitter, and I don't know if it's responded to me yet. I don't think they would, but I essentially said, I asked it, do you consider yourself just a piece of metal? In any case, like I remember, and you unfortunately haven't seen the Rays win yet, but they've gone to the World Series.
We got close.
Exactly. But 2003, that was my World Series.
Although I was a Marlins fan at the time. I remember
because you're a Pudge fan.
Right. I remember, although I was also, because my Little League team at the time was the Marlins, I kind of had an affinity for a while. I remember annoying my mom because we had to pick my sister up from work when I was 12 at the time. No, 11 at the time, 2003. So I was 11 when it happened, and I was like, no, I have to wait until they win the World Series. And I remember I was so annoyed because I fell asleep before Alex Gonzalez hit the game-winning home run in
Game 4.
Game 4?
Game 4.
So, like,
I know everything about that series. Believe me, I know when it happened.
I used to have the DVD, and I would watch it over and over and over and over again.
Me too. I have the VHS of the 97 one, too.
We'll have to get together and do a viewing party of that.
It's on YouTube. They're both on YouTube.
I haven't found the 03 one on YouTube.
Really? I think it was.
Whatever.
If anything, whatever.
Our point being, the World Series is maybe not the trophy represents what the World Series represents. And for Manfred to just shit all over it is just despicable, especially when it's coming from the leader of the league. So...
Like 2003 was my World Series. I was playing baseball. I mean, because it was such a surprise that they made it that far. Like those guys are my heroes. They really are. They're one of my heroes. Like every guy on that roster, from Brian Banks, Carl Pavano, Andy Fox, like guys you wouldn't even like, guys that maybe players you can remember to forget that I remember on that team.
We should do a 2003 remember to forget segment.
I mean, of course, the significant guys, Derek Lee, Mike Lowell, Josh Beckett, Miguel Pudge Rodriguez, Miguel Cabrera. I mean, just those guys defeating the New York Yankees, the one team that in the middle of the dynasty, by the way, still the Yankees. That was their down period.
The end of the main dynasty.
Yeah, that was like the down period, and then the resurgence in 2009. But I mean, I remember from '98 to through 2003 when Pro Player Stadium was empty, and it was just me and my dad going to the games. Me and my dad going to Sunday home games during the day. 90-degree weather in the summer. Nobody around us. As the Marlins were 20 games under 500. But still going and still loving the Marlins. And I remember sitting on a Sunday, 18-inning game, as the Marlins in 2003, early before they made their run, before they fired Jeff Torborg and got Jack McKeon, losing to the Cardinals. But me and my dad sticking around for all 6 hours of that game. Like, and when they finally won, it was like, oh my God, and I finally see that trophy, and they lift it, and then the next fan fest, when I go and actually see the trophy in person, it's like, like, there it is. There it is. There's the piece of metal that I really like. But it's not a piece of metal. It's the World Series trophy. It's like, not everybody gets one of these, you know? The Seattle Mariners, who have yet to get to the World Series, would kill to even see that being presented to the opposing team. You know? At least the Panthers, they lost in 96 at home against the frickin' Avalanche. They at least saw the Stanley Cup from the other side of the rink, you know? It is... gosh. Can we move forward? Justin Turner said his stuff. Nick Markakis, who actually a lot of people have tracked to actually getting 3,000 hits.
Really?
Read the articles about Nick Markakis. He could get 3,000 hits. He's like he's one of those like sleeper Hall of Famers actually. He said that every one of the guys on the Astros deserves a beating. That's extreme.
Oh, and get this irony. And again, I can't fault Dusty Baker here because he's doing what any good manager would do.
He's an old baseball guy.
Right, and
he's a PR move for the Astros. He's a PR hiring.
And look, any manager, I don't care how old or young they are, he sees that no one likes the Astros right now. So he's doing what any good manager would do, which is to look out for the safety of his players. Which in this case means him pleading with Manfred to put something out there saying, don't hit the players. By the way, there's a sports book that has the over-under on hit by pitches for the Astros this season.
They might break the record.
At 83.5.
They might break the record.
Most people are taking the over.
I could see. And I wonder what the other owners think about this, because... especially the ones that have faced the Astros in the playoffs from 2017 to now, which includes the Yankees and the Rays, and I forgot who else they faced in the playoffs. The Dodgers, obviously. I wonder how they feel about their commissioner, the guy that is supposedly your guy that you choose to negotiate against the Players Association, by the way, who the players absolutely hate. They hate this guy. This is not going to go well in the future. This is like, there's so many layers to this. It's a snowball that keeps getting bigger for baseball, and they can't make it go away. LeBron James just tweeted something about it. The biggest athlete in all of sports just tweeted about it. So now before it was contained within the baseball world. Now it's crossed over. So we're going to hear it. We're not going to hear it from Tom Brady, that's for sure. Because of their sort of transgressions with cheating. But who's next? Who's going to talk next from the sporting world about this? Who knows? But it's not going away. It's not going away. So... Mike Clevenger, Nick Markakis, Mike Trout. So that's the Cleveland Indians, the Los Angeles Angels, the Los Angeles Dodgers from Bellinger and Justin Turner. Nick Markakis, the Atlanta Braves. Now LeBron James, the Los Angeles Lakers. Like we're crossing into other territories. Like what's gonna happen when they face the Yankees? Because they face the Yankees. They're in the American League. When they go to Yankee Stadium.
Or the Rays. Well, no, they didn't face the Rays in 2017, but they did face them in 2019.
Yeah, but I'm saying, the regular season.
Regular season.
The regular season's going to start.
Now, well, I just mean that they'll face the Rays as well, and they have an axe to grind.
Like the Astros will be traveling for spring training, and they're going to see these teams as well. They're going to see the Yankees. They're going to see they won't see the Dodgers and teams like and they're in division rivals as well, because all those guys train out in Arizona. But
get this. Guess who the Astros' first opponent is in spring training?
I mean, the Nationals, I would assume, because they share this facility.
Yep. So
The Nationals are sitting pretty here, by the way. They're probably the one team that's like, yeah, we beat these effers, even with their cheating. And we beat them at all their games on the road. We won every single one in Houston. Like, these guys couldn't even cheat to beat us.
now here, let me just look at some notable games of theirs. The Astros.
I mean, so they face the Yankees when? When is their first trip to Yankee Stadium?
I'm just talking spring training.
Oh, okay, that's just spring training. Hold on, let me pull up their regular
Actually, I don't
season.
think they face the Yankees in spring training.
Well, I don't know. Well, usually the Yankees make pop over one trip to this side of Florida, just because they're a money maker.
First meeting with the Yanks is May 15th. But that's in Houston.
That's in Houston. When do they go to Yankee Stadium? Because there's New Yorkers right now itching for that game. I wonder what's going to happen there. Like,
good Lord, do they ever face the Yankees?
They do face the Yankees in because they're in the American League.
It'll be September though.
Wow, that's a long time. Could you? I mean, if they're in a playoff race, like let's say they're neck and neck for top spot in the American League. Imagine that. Imagine that. Or let's say one of them really needs to win to claim a playoff spot. Like one of them's on the edge for one of their playoff spots. Like I mean, I don't know if it'll be Malice at the Palace where people are just throwing garbage at them into their dugout. Of course, they're gonna have high security for that game. The Astros face this year the National League East, so they're not facing the National League West. Because imagine if they had to go to Dodger Stadium. So, the Marlins do face the Astros.
September 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th.
In Houston.
They'll be in New York. 15th through 17th, they'll be in Houston.
To face the Marlins?
No. Astros against Yanks.
Hold on. I know they face the Marlins this year. I think they do. Because
alas, they do not face the Dodgers this year.
I mean, they face them in spring training, that's for sure. But let me see. Toronto,
the Dodgers?
Boston. No. I'm looking for the Marlins right now in the schedule. June, July.
Ooh, they face the Rays in the 13th, 14th.
They have a rematch against the Nationals in July 3rd through the 5th. Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Talk about some fireworks.
Yeah, they're gonna rematch against the Nationals. That'll be fun. And they face the Marlins September 1st through 3rd. So
get your tickets now, folks.
Yeah, if you're in Houston, go. I wish they had come here. Oh, I would have bought tickets to one of those games if they came to Miami. And you could probably hear us because the Marlins probably won't be good by that point. And we'll be one of 12 people at the game. But gosh, we are running long on the show, aren't we?
Yeah, but it's been a very cathartic episode.
I know. Are there any more thoughts about this? I mean,
I don't know what else.
We keep beating this. Well, it's not that the horse is dead. The
it
horse
keeps coming back to
dies,
life.
and Major League Baseball, keeps freaking getting the defibrillator and bring it back to life. Dear Lord.
Honestly, the best thing for them to do right now is just shut up.
It really is. Like, just, you know what? Let the game do the talking, you know? Mm-hmm. Take your licks. All right. We're going to throw at your head. Houston. You guys just get the icy hot and stuff ready.
Don't throw at their heads because that's legitimately dangerous. Let's be honest.
But I assume they'll throw one. Somebody will. The Astros are going to get in a major scuffle with somebody this season. There will be
no doubt
a bench clearing brawl. I could see it against the Texas Rangers because that's their natural rival and they've had issues against them. And honestly, the Angels are projected to be a lot better this year. I could see things boiling over, especially if your leader, Mike Trout, is actually angry for once. I mean, that's a lot of emotion. Mm-hmm. Like, wow, this guy's angry at them. I'm going to be pissed. the Cleveland Indians because Mike Clevenger, a good starting pitcher for the Indians. You imagine him against them? Dear Lord, he will throw at a guy. He'll take the fine.
Oh man,
I think a lot of players. Honestly, there should be a fund. These players should have like their own fund, their own bank account. Okay, 29 other teams. Even if you're not facing the Astros, we're gonna have a pool. You just donate to that. Just put in a good $10,000 from every other player in Major League Baseball. A couple hundred players, and yeah. Dear Lord, is there anything more? I mean, interesting. I mean, that in division is going to be interesting. I think somebody from the A's said something against them too, and they are ready to throw down in Oakland, especially their fans. The Oakland fans, they're Raider fans. Those people are going to go nuts against the Astros. Those people are funny too. They are really funny. I mean, they fought players before in Oakland. They have to go to the Coliseum, and that's already a crappy ballpark. You imagine the conditions they're going to leave the Astros locker room?
Oh, God.
Yeah, welcome to Oakland, Houston. Yeah, don't mind. We didn't clean the locker room. Just go in there, you know? Yeah, the sewage. It's a thing. So yeah, they're in-division rivals. Maybe not the Mariners because they always suck. But Houston, Angels, the Rangers in the new ballpark, the Yankees, the Nationals, and it's going to be... who else? The Nationals, who else is in the mirror? Let's see. Man, the Phillies? Well, Joe Girardi, who was an old school type of guy. They faced the Phillies. That's another one. I'm so excited actually. This is probably one of the few. The Astros are going to be a fun story for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a long Gottlieb Schoon section.
That is a really, really long.
Our airing of grievances are kind of like a Festivus for baseball.
Yeah. Well, this is fun though. Like I said, very cathartic episode.
Is there? We don't have any more to cover, right? We're done for the night.
I mean, we could keep going. We'd probably be going to midnight.
Dear Lord!
I mean,
how long has the episode been going on?
Well, we started at 7.
What's the timer set on the bottom?
1:56.
So we're not even at 2 hours.
I know, but I started at 7 o'clock on the dot. So we
we're
lost. I don't know why, but we've lost some minutes.
We've lost 4 minutes. Did we go through time?
I don't know.
We have 4 minutes. Hold on. Okay, what can we talk about in 4 minutes that's non-sports related then? What did I put for our nonsense category? We always have a nonsense category. Rob Manfred, he's nonsense, that's for sure. I didn't watch the XFL. I didn't watch the XFL. Was it?
Wait, you have a segment called "Selling Out"
about
VyStar Credit Union.
Oh, okay. Well, I already talked about VyStar Credit Union last time. Selling Out was a segment that I was thinking of doing because all these sports have now freaking sponsorships, like even on the jerseys and NBA jerseys. So I would go down the rabbit hole of some companies. That's what Selling Out is.
Right.
We've already sold out. By the way, get Eve online. Okay? Just get it. All right? I don't have it, but you can get it. You can get it on your PC. You know, download it right there. If you're not playing RuneScape, just download that. You know? I have a Switch. It's probably not on the Switch at all. Maybe. I don't know. I don't follow everything Nintendo does. I'm not that much of a worshiper. Okay. Not ready to do a minor league team. The most useless stat in sports, that's going to take too long. People standing at the terminal when it's not their group, yeah, that's annoying. What the perfect tank should be like. I had something about food. Gosh darn it. I had something about food somewhere. Oh, well. Well. That's it.
You have to kill another minute and
Can we
45 seconds.
So we can't go to the cage, can we?
We can't go to the cage, unfortunately.
Okay. Did you do anything significant this weekend?
No. How about you?
Me. I got my save average up in Rocket League.
Nice.
So I play Rocket League. Get me off the Gottlieb's Goon section, by the way. Get me off of there. Get away from me, Mr. Gottlieb. Doug Gottlieb. Not the good Doug that hasn't appeared on our show in a long time.
We miss you, Doug.
Yes, we do. Anyways, I played a ton of Rocket League, the hockey mode, snow day, and I have sacrificed my offensive production in order to get better defensively. And Andrew has played some matches in Rocket League, and it's really hard to be good defensively in that game, you would say, right?
I would say.
So I've made it a point to be a really good goalie in the game. Like I really want to be a good goalie in the game. It's really hard to maneuver. I originally had like a 0.6 or so. No, actually it was lower than that. It might have been like a 0.4 average goals. So every in 10 matches, every 4 games, I would get a save in the game. I've raised that to 0.8. It finally got to 0.8 this weekend.
Nice. Congratulations.
Oh, no. I am incredibly proud of it. My offense has gone down the toilet, by the way. I used to be a goal per game player. Now it's 0.89.
So you're basically even offense and defense.
Essentially, I'm not like that bad offensively. I'll get a goal, once every other game at least. But it's the saves. It's the games where I get like 3 saves on a guy. I even tweeted one time. I don't know if you saw my tweet. Like I made like 3 saves in the span of like 5 seconds, and I tweeted, "Is this what Dominik Hasek feels like?" Did we cover Dominik Hasek in one episode?
Briefly.
We
did a mini learn a goof for
because
Charles.
we did a long one for Roberto Luongo today. We were planning, but unfortunately Charles wasn't here to learn a goof him about the evolution of goalies playing styles.
We'll have to do that next week.
Okay,
and
so
we'll
and Dominik Hasek.
That would be the perfect person to do for that segment.
Yeah, revolutionary.
Because even today, I don't think anyone's really replicated him. He was a one-of-a-kind goalie.
He had a weird body. I mean, he was built differently than other players. Like,
we'll save him.
Oh gosh!
Because we
now I'm excited to talk about Dominik Hasek
for next week for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we've hit the 2-hour mark somewhere because even though we started the show at 7:00, I checked, we have somehow lost 22 minutes.
It might have been the technical difficulties at the beginning. Maybe it actually counted as like, let's not really start the show.
Maybe. I mean, I know that my computer freezes while running OBS.
That could be it. It might be just the ticker not matching up. Maybe like when it finally finishes uploading on YouTube, it'll be boom.
Well, we'll find out.
Whatever. We'll find out when it's when it hits the podcast on Apple Podcasts, and I think I haven't checked. You should check whether we're on Google Podcasts. I signed up for it and everything.
All right, we'll take a look.
And all the myriad of other networks and stuff. And then, of course, hi to our Russian audience, our mainstays that help us, that keep us going, along with the 2 cents per episode that we get from EVE Online and various other sponsors.
All right, folks, it is 9:23 here on the East Coast, so it is time for us to boogie. As always, thank you for joining us. This is episode 52 of Sports Goofs. Can't believe it's been that long. On behalf of Francisco.
Adios.
I am Andrew. I will not say my last name just because I don't want to get doxxed. Although, who would dox this little podcast of ours?
No.
So, on behalf of Francisco, I am Andrew. Thank you all again. Oh, and thank you to Tony Danza,
yes.
JD Wonderbread, for coming on the show and goofing about NASCAR and really motorsports in general.
And the real Tony Danza as well.
and the real Tony, Mr. Danza. I loved you in Angels in the Outfield.
Mm-hmm.
I loved you in crap. I forget the name of the show, but it's a detective show that you were in with Josh Groban on Netflix. That was canceled after 1 year. I really enjoyed that show too. If you ever want to come on the show,
Yes.
please, by all means.
Please join the pantheon of friends of the shows that haven't actually appeared on the show.
Kevin Durant, please join us.
Kevin Durant, Pat McAfee,
Roberto Luongo,
Derek Jeter.
Basically, if you want to come on the show, please, we would be honored to have you.
Exactly.
All right, folks. I know I keep saying that, but once again, thank you all for watching. Thank you to Tony Danza for joining us earlier. And we will see you next week, Tuesday at 7 o'clock, come hell or high water. Once again, thank you, and have a wonderful evening.